Hi, it's Maddie
and V, and today we're going to be doing a read in one sitting, the afternoon of a day, and we thought we want to be productive before we lose some light, and so the answer is to try and read a book in one sitting.
We haven't done this in quite a while and we've picked short books. Is yours short?
Yeah,
feasibly?
300 pages.
So that we actually have a chance of finishing them before it goes absolutely pitch black in this room.
Which will happen in about 30 minutes, so ooh.
I've chosen We Are Okay by LaCour at 234 pages.
And I have chosen The Sky is Everywhere by Jandy at 303 pages. But I think this has got some like poetry and stuff at the beginning of each chapter, so should be able to get through it a little bit quicker.
And this one will put me in my feelings, I'm sure, which will slow down my pace because I'll have to deal with some sadness.
Oh yeah, same. Have you read this one? Yeah,
Yes.
Will it put me in my feelings?
I don't think I felt particularly emotional reading it.
Okay.
Like there's a dead sister, isn't there?
Oh no. Maybe.
But I think the annoying romance balances it a bit.
At least I've only got to read it today.
Ooh, mine's told in parts. That gives me something to aim towards. What about you?
Just chapters.
Just chapters out. I think you've read enough for a first impression.
I've read 16 pages and really like it so far. That's only one chapter in, and so we learn that Marin is staying in her university accommodation over the winter because she doesn't have any family to go back to, and her friend from what seems to be a previous life called Mabel is coming to visit her, and she's just arrived at the end of the first chapter. So there's obviously a lot of history between them, and there's been a lot of radio silence, so this is like the first time that they're talking to each other in quite a while. And I love the isolated setting. I'm always really intrigued by spaces that people don't normally get to see at different times. Like it so far. It's all good.
I can say this definitely has the Jandy Nelson appeal. This is the story of Lenny, whose sister has recently died before the events of this novel, and she's sort of going back to her school life and people are pitying her, but there's a new boy, so that's a distraction, and someone who doesn't know her from when she had her sister with her, and they're connected through the school band. And that's pretty much all that's been established so far, along with the idea that her grandma is really concerned about her because she thinks her life force and her spirit, I suppose, is connected to this plant, which now has black dots as if it's not going to recover and may die. So ominous. Also, the main character loves, and I mean loves, Wuthering Heights, which I hate. So I hope it's not a retelling of that per se.
I've read 50 pages now, and we found out that Marin's mum drowned when she was 3, and so she was living with her grandfather until he also passed away by drowning. Don't know if that's on purpose yet or not. And Mabel is there to convince her to come back to California from New York to live with her parents so that she's not alone over Christmas. Marin and Mabel definitely had a relationship that was more than friends, and Mabel has just announced that she has a boyfriend, and Marin doesn't really know how to feel about that yet. That's quite a lot to learn in 50 pages. And already it feels like there's an emotional depth. This feels very heavy and beautiful. Like, it's such a short book, like less than 250 pages, which is absolutely insane because it feels so rich, and I love books that pay so much attention to the words, and you can tell that Marin's experiences are shaping the way that she's describing things and the narrative.
So I'm at page 130. Where are you?
At 99.
Okay, so you're halfway through.
Halfway.
I'm just over a third of the way through. We have an hour and a half until we have to start making dinner. That's the deadline.
Come on.
Mine is just, how comfortable do you feel with the idea of a person becoming in a relationship with their dead sister's boyfriend, which is like not very comfortable at all, actually.
Yeah.
So that's how that's going.
Yeah, it's just a lot. Like, there's so much under the surface, I think, between Marin and Mabel that has yet to come out, and
it's looking for Alaska TV show vibes is what that book is.
very, it is actually. It's like them staying during Thanksgiving. I really like how in 100 pages we've got 2 chapters that have gone, or maybe it's been 3, that have gone back into the past and told you what it was like when Marin's grandpa was still alive, and how like unresponsive he was when talking about her mum. And you get like a good sense of Marin's relationship with Mabel's parents because they're the people that want to be her legal guardians. And yeah, for some reason she's just really holding back from wanting to go back to that place, and she's explaining it like there's too much grief there. The whole place is a trigger for her.
Yeah.
Even if she's surrounded by people that love her, it's just not where she can be. I don't know what is going to happen. This is the thing. I don't know what thought she's going to come to, because it feels so certain that she won't go with them and that she can't have Mabel the way she had her before.
Right.
So I'm a little bit like, there's no...
I don't know if it's... I think it's an open ending.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like specifically happy that can happen.
Right.
I think she just has to like deal with her grief.
Yeah.
But
grief is never happy. Like, if there's a
No.
happy ending to grief, then that's just unrealistic.
yeah, that's true. That's very true. It's only been a while since her grandfather died, but her mum died 15 years ago.
Right.
So it's like grief on top of grief.
Yeah.
I guess there was a lot of stuff that she didn't really get to process.
Do you feel reading it like being outside of university now? Because I think, when did this come out?
2017, I think it was. Like, the university part of it isn't a big part of it. I'm actually jealous of how much she can talk about like literature and analysing things, because she makes it seem really fun. And I'm like, wow, I never had that much fun.
That's not what a lit degree was.
I never had fun picking out meanings like that. And she's because she's alone, she's like constantly having to do things to fill her time.
Yeah.
And she's finding things to learn. Like,
Yeah.
I love the way she spends her time, even if it is kind of melancholy.
I feel like the sense of isolation, it's weird that she's experiencing that isolation when everyone's gone home for winter break, which kind of, you can feel that sense of isolation at university even when everyone's around you.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you can feel that alone.
Yeah.
I'd probably feel happier genuinely alone at uni than
And surrounded by other people.
yeah, that's even worse. That's a prison in and of itself. So
But I'm really loving it so far, and I don't think that's going to change. So
there's a reason you should have read it years ago.
Well, I remember trying to read this one before and then
Right.
thinking like, oh god, I'm reading my next favourite book, and then I
Right,
just put it
yeah,
down
yeah,
because
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I need the time to devote to this. So
Yeah.
I think I'm further than I got, so I don't know what happens here. But yeah, as I was reading this, I was like, oh yeah, the scene with the dresses and like, you know, there were
I can't
parts
remember these
of it.
books. I don't know whether to be thankful, to be honest, that I'm like a goldfish when it comes to even my favourite books. Like, I'll have the impression of reading it, but
And being like, wow.
I think what
it's
actually
because
happens, gone.
I don't focus on quotes a lot, but there have been quite a lot of quotes in this that have been really lovely. Like, the writing itself, I'm like, oh god, I wish I'd written that, or I wish I could. So
yeah, I'm picking up on that with Jandy Nelson. Like, she used a lot of imagery, figurative language, which I don't at all in my own writing. So whenever I read someone who writes like that, I'm just
it's just
like,
impressive, isn't it?
yeah. There was a bit where the character just like wrote something into her jeans, like a note to herself, and I was like, that's something I do idly, like all the time, but I would never think to put that kind of detail in. And it's those little
like,
bits
wow.
that make me think.
I told him I was looking up at the sky. He said, "That's a misconception, Lenny. The sky is everywhere. It begins at your feet." That's the most poetic thing I've ever read in my whole life. It makes me feel physically sick. That's such a good title.
Yeah.
We've had so many poems and that one line from a not even poetic character.
It's become more apparent that this is also the story about trying to find her missing mother, who is in a half-painted portrait above their mantelpiece and left when they were younger without a trace. It turns out that her sister Bailey has been trying to find her mother for who knows how long, but she's been using the first name that they knew, Paige, and combining it with a bunch of different surnames to see if she could get any leads. Now Lennon has decided to pick up the pieces and see how far she can get. She's also committed to saying "I love you" to Joe, although she's now realised that he has some sort of past he's not telling her about with a girl called Genevieve. So the question of who is Genevieve remains. So I updated at the wrong point, because literally a second later Toby comes in to tell her that Bailey was pregnant and that they would have had a kid. And so Lennon and Toby end up kissing as part of their comfort, and then Joe walks in on them and she's like, "It's not what it looks like," and he's like, "It definitely is." So yikes. I can't say I'm surprised by any means that Bailey was pregnant. That feels like the expected twist. So we've each got about 50 pages left of our books, but alas, dinner could not go unprepared. So we're pausing now to make that, and then we will get back to reading. So it's not exactly one sitting, but it is one afternoon. So last night I finished We Are Okay, and it was just as stunning and gorgeous as I expected to be. The ending did get me. I managed to cry on the penultimate page. It really got me when Marin was talking to Anna, Mabel's mum, and they were really trying to convince her to come home with them. The love just really poured off the page and right out of my eyes. Within the last 70 pages, you get the emotional release where Marin learns things about her grandfather, or the past catches up with the present as she tells Mabel what happened. And suddenly it puts a new spin on all the things that you knew and gives them this devastating twist that makes you completely understand why Marin is so torn up about it. I thought a book that was just this short and concise, but still managed to have such complex characters with fully fleshed out thoughts and feelings and managed to handle emotion without being too cloying and heavy-handed was just so impressive. This is my first Nina LaCour book, and I will definitely be reading more from her because this was just such a great introduction to her writing. It was just atmospheric and unique and managed to perfectly capture exactly what she was going for. I really liked the queer relationship in this, how Mabel and Marin, there was obviously something complicated between them and heartbreak involved, but it wasn't desperately sad or bitter towards each other. I think they both just had so much love for each other in more than one capacity. I never felt nervous that they wouldn't still be in each other's lives in some way. And I liked that positive spin to them and the idea that they will both be all right and move on in a healthy way. So a lot of payoff, the happy ending that I wanted that I didn't think I would receive halfway through this book. So I just really couldn't recommend it more. I'm sad it's been sat on the shelves for so long and it's going straight on the favourites shelf. To ensure it didn't look like we were filming on a Tamagotchi, we decided to film our final updates the next day. So I did manage to finish The Skies Everywhere yesterday, and I can safely say the one thing I liked and appreciated about this book after finishing it was that it dealt with grief in an unconventional way. Surprisingly, I read a lot of grief books, so I felt like this was doing something different, and just showed like the confusion and how right can be wrong and wrong can be right when you're grieving. Although I didn't agree with the budding relationship between Lenny and Toby in the beginning, I think the way that they could find comfort in each other, you can't pass judgment on, and I think that's what Lenny was trying to tell her friends and Joe. I liked how it explained that the poetry we got at the end of every chapter, the way that it was just written on scraps of paper, wrappers, whatever garbage, and just hidden across town, had been slowly collected by Joe, and that was the push for their love declarations at the very end, because he'd been learning, he'd been understanding her through her poetry this whole time. So that's nice and convenient that it gets to work out for them despite all of the mess that they were in throughout the book. I think the character growth was a little bit obvious in the ways that it was going to happen. For example, in the beginning, Lenny is adamant that she doesn't want to be first chair, even though she's excellent at her instrument, because she doesn't want to take the solos. So obviously the reason to show growth and change is that she'll then go ahead and try and take those solos and become first chair. And we also got some closure on her mum's disappearance and how that was just another way of someone dealing with grief, and that's through not lying but concealing the truth, coming up with a different story that will make it less painful for other people. It's a sticky subject, I think, lying in order to protect someone, choosing what they can and can't know. Obviously in this case it was a grandparent looking after young children, and obviously the choices that you make when they're young are going to be different to what you make when they're older, so things came out a little bit rushed or not when the time was right, because who knows if it would have happened at this point in their lives had Bailey not died. I can safely say that I didn't enjoy it as much as I'll Give You the Sun, but Jandy Nelson's writing style definitely carried me through this love at first sight, insta-love romance that was happening throughout. So I'd probably give it maybe a 3-star, very arbitrarily. And I'm really pleased because this is one book down from my mini TBR of books that Maddie has read that I haven't. And this is the same for me because you've read this one, so the TBR is shrinking, and that's going to be the thing that we put most effort into in our next weekly reading vlog. So thank you everyone so much for watching, and we'll catch you in our next video. Suddenly I see polka dots.